everyone, Howie Fisher from Fisher's Flies. Thanks for checking in as always. Today I'm going to be tying up a Euro jig streamer that was tied by the Demuths on their Whip Finish Wednesday. If you haven't ever checked them out, go ahead and do so. For the hook, I'm using a freshwater 555 and 12 from Arex, and I'm pairing that with a 4.0 millimeter slotted tungsten bead in silver. For this fly, I'm also using 0.01 lead wire to add a little bit of extra weight to this fly and secure that bead. I'm going to do about a dozen or so wraps on the shank before helicoptering my wire off, and then I'll jam that into the bead. For thread, I'm using Vivis A-Dot in red. I'm going to go ahead and get started with my thread right behind the lead wraps. Take a couple wraps in front of that to make sure that those don't go anywhere. Then wrap backwards back over the lead wire to make sure that those are secure. I'm going to go ahead and snip off with my trusty Renome scissors. And then I'm going to bring my thread to right where the hook starts to bend. I'm then going to take my tail, which is Fish Hunter Marabou in fluorescent white, or just regular white is fine if that's what you have. I'm going to go ahead and take about a dozen fibers off the stem, and I'm going to use my fingernails to shorten these fibers and make them a little bit more fluffy. This is just a personal preference, and I like to do this before tying them in so that the tips are a little bit misaligned and it looks a little bit more natural. I'm then going to secure my material on top of the hook shank and make sure that that's secure all the way up to the bead. Snip off the butt ends if needed, and then bring my thread all the way back to the original tie-in point. My next material is going to be straggle string in white from Semperfli. I'm going to go ahead and tie this in on the near side of the hook or on top. Again, making sure this is fully secure all the way up to the bead. And then I'm going to bring my thread again back to the tie-in point at the end of the hook. And I'm going to create a split thread dubbing loop using Arizona Diamond Dub in red. Any red dubbing like this will do. The Demuths originally used Semperfli seal substitute. You could also use red ice dub. I'm then going to go ahead and unwind my thread by spinning it counterclockwise and flattening it out with my bodkin as you see here. And I'm going to split the thread with my bodkin and insert my little clump of dubbing. Once I've got it in there, I'm going to kind of spread it out, make sure it's where I want it, not too thick, not too thin, also long enough. I'm then going to cord up that thread again by spinning my bobbin clockwise. And once I have it where I want it, I'm going to brush out those fibers, make sure there's none that are trapped. I'm then going to grab my straggle string, and I'm just going to use my fingers to twist it a little bit, just so those are corded up and intertwined even more. Once I've done that, I'm just going to wrap this forward all the way to right behind the bead by taking touching wraps and brushing those fibers back when needed. Once I've got it where I want it, I'm going to go ahead and secure that straggle string by taking a couple wraps over top of it and in front of it, and then snip that off. Next, I'm going to make a little bit of a platform here, or a thread base, for the next material, which are going to be legs. Before tying my legs in though, I'm going to take my dubbing brush and again just brush everything out, make sure there's no trapped fibers either in the dubbing or the straggle string. Make sure everything looks good. So for my legs, I'm using Grizzly Flutter Legs from Hairline, Black Bard and Clear Pearl. You can use white, red, whatever you prefer. Just going to go ahead and take one fiber off. Since this is a Euro streamer and it's smaller, and by one fiber I mean one strand of legs, I'm only going to use one piece, and I'm going to wrap it around the thread like you see me do here. Flip my fly over so that they're going to sit on what will be the top of the fly. Remember, this is a jig hook, so the bead or the hook point will ride up. So I'm going to take cross wraps, 2 in each direction, and before cinching down, pull this back, make sure I've got it where I want it. Take a couple more wraps and then pull tight. I'm going to snip these just past the length of the tail, and you can see here those legs splay out pretty well, and just add a little bit of extra fishiness, bugginess to it. The last material for this is white rabbit strips. You could use white barred with black if you wanted to, or a different color. I'm going to go ahead and take a small chunk off, preen it out, and then take my Stonfo clip or chip clip or a Swiss CDC clamp, whatever you have, and cut it off. These renowned extra long sharp scissors are the perfect tool for these. These scissors are perfect for cutting materials like this, especially once you get the rabbit or zonker or whatever you're using in the dubbing loop and spread it out. It just works perfectly. You can take one scissor cut and cut all the materials you need to rather than taking a couple. So again, I'm doing a split thread dubbing loop, just flattening my thread out, splitting it, inserting the hair. And again, you can see here I'm going to spread these fibers out a little bit, move them around, make sure they're not too clumped up. And then I'm going to take those scissors again. You see how long they are, and I only need one cut from them, one swipe from them, and I've got that whole material. Just another tool to help speed up tying if that's a concern of yours. Again, I'm going to go ahead and spin this clockwise now to cord that up and make sure these fibers aren't going anywhere. Once I've got that spun up and tightened, I'm then just going to go ahead and take overlapping or touching wraps with the rabbit fur until I get to the head of the fly, and go ahead and brush those fibers back. I'm going to go ahead and take a couple wraps to make sure that thread doesn't break, and then unspin it just a little bit. If you don't do this step or forget to do this step, it's not a huge deal, but just make sure you don't put too much tension on the thread, as it can break before whip finishing or if you pull super tight. So I'm going to go ahead and whip finish 2 times, snip my thread, take some Solarez bone dry and just give it a quick swipe. Make sure those threads are secure and not going anywhere. Hit it with the UV light. And there you have it. This is a little nice little Euro jig streamer. You can tie it up in a bunch of different colors, but tie them up, fish them, let me know what you think. Thanks.